Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it. Great to be in with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Hope you're doing all right. Big recruiting weekend and a win for Nebraska. Hope you're doing all right. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal.
I like that one.
Thank you so much. We'll be here for another hour and 54 minutes. Tip your waiters. Try the veal. No, in all sincerity, we'll dive in, get some recruiting insight from Greg Smith, HailVarsity.com, and magazine at Greg Smith HV is where you follow him. So how did the visits go? What was the decider for Wynn? The Y factor, and is Nebraska in hot pursuit of another talent, another weapon here for Casey Thompson? We will let you know on Marcus Moochie, Washington, when and if he puts anything out. Was in to check out Nebraska. I know Purdue's been trying to get his services as well. Pretty big-time talent at wideout that could be a nice connection downfield for the Big Red offense. So we'll dive into all of that. Some thoughts on the weekend shortly. Good stuff with the extended playoff with the PGA Championship down at Southern Hills. Jay Moore going to be with us in a little more than an hour. Get his golf take, get his football take, and as always on a Monday, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com, and give us a follow. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt, that's me, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbal. And do yourself a favor, follow Hail Varsity at Hail Varsity, ESPN Lincoln at ESPN Lincoln. Before we're done this hour and next, your chance to qualify to beef up your backyard, get in the running for that grill. Check that. Smoker, slap me. It's a smoker, the Smoky Mountain Cooker Smoker from Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop. A gift card to Russ's Market. All sorts of meat to put on that smoker. Your chance to qualify can log on ESPNLincoln.com to get qualified. So, Stephon Wynn and the hype video put out by Wynn and Nebraska pretty much broke the internet, broke Twitter. This thing's working on 200,000 views, which is just incredible. And you had the announcement come down later yesterday. And listen, this is pretty big time for Nebraska. You can't sugarcoat talent. You can't sugarcoat body type. And at 6'4", 308, that's a big dude that can play on the interior and stuff the run and make things happen when it comes to getting after the quarterback. Now, that's the projection that is supposed to happen. That is supposed to happen with Mathis. That is supposed to happen with Nebraska and what they want to do with Devin Drew, right? I mean, you've lost and you've gained. Time will tell, and we'll never know. It's a hypothetical because you have three guys that have moved on to different programs, a couple to Oregon, one to Virginia Tech, and you brought in a kid from Bama, a kid from Tech, a kid from TCU. How does it all translate? But you feel pretty good, and I think if you're a Nebraska fan and you're picking what D-line do you want, I mean, Casey Rogers was the known quantity, and that was just some snippets, but they were good snippets. What do we know about Stephon Wynn? Well, we know Wynn about 70 snaps, a few plays here and there, right? A couple of hurries, a couple of pass deflections, 7 tackles, something like that. We don't know the why. Why is Stephon Wynn leaving Alabama? And I'm going to project, I'm going to speculate. Follow me for a moment. Phildarius Mathis, Christian Barmore, Raekwon Davis, Quinnen Williams, Isaiah Buggs, Darian Payne, Deshaun Hand, Josh Frazier, Davlin Tomlinson, Ashawn Robinson, Jaron Reed. So you have 11 interior tackles, 3 techniques or nose guards that have gone to the NFL draft since 2016. You have 2017, part of the recruiting class, Wynn was part of. He's ranked higher than Sue as a defensive lineman on Rivals, if you go back to it, by a number, 5th in the country versus 6th in the country. All that is great, but it needs to translate. It needs to perform on the field. What I'm excited about, if you're a Nebraska fan, is you're getting a guy that was good enough to play at Bama. Well, good enough to go to Bama, and good enough to be part of a rotation. Now, that rotation we just cranked out for you, it sounds a lot like the 90s Nebraska rotation, where it's NFL guy on top of NFL guy on top of NFL guy. To me, I look at this, there's a window, he's got 2 years, let's go play some ball in the Big Ten against some really good other talented offensive linemen like he's seen in the SEC. I think there's just too many NFL guys in that Bama locker room at his position. And if you were going to break through and see meaningful snaps, because we've done our research, we haven't seen injury, we haven't seen attitude issues, we haven't seen any of that. It just comes down to someone's better than you, and you're not getting your snaps. Is that the case in Lincoln? Well, Robinson is a guy that has started for 1 year and played a lot of snaps, but there is playing time. There's plenty open right now. Nebraska needed him. He needed a spot like Nebraska. And let's see if both of them can work out together, along with Drew, along with Mathis, along with Robinson, along with some of these young pups like a Marquise Black, Roquan Buckley, Colton Feast, the Polar Bear, Mosai Newsom, and Jalen Weaver. And the other part of this, before we get to the phones, Elijah, you got a guy that's been around multiple national championships, SEC championship, big game wins. Never hurts to bring a guy who's been in that Bama process / culture to Lincoln.
Yeah, and the way I see it with the names you just listed off, this is not a guy who you're hoping to stash. This is not a let's let him develop a couple years. No, you bring him here, and this is a guy
stash?
that it's going to be between I'd say 3 guys.
Yeah,
Jalen Weaver, Nash Hutmacher, and Stephon Wynn to be the 2 most likely 2 guys that get the majority of the snaps at nose guard. You now have 3 guys battling for 2 spots as opposed to 2 guys battling for 2 spots. You're bringing in more competition.
I get 2 young guys that get more time, brother, as supplement guys, with Wynn getting the majority of the snaps.
And that's the way you would hope it would go, but I guess you don't exactly know what you have until he's on the field. You don't ink it. You probably pencil it in. The way I look at it now, it's probably Wynn number 1, Hutmacher number 2. But if Hutmacher has a big fall, it could be Hutmacher 1 and Wynn number 2. But that's all to be determined. But I see this the same way I see a Devin Drew or an O'Shawn Mathis transfer, where this is a guy who has come in here and he's going to get reps early. He's going to be on the field early. This is not a guy that I guess you could look at Kane Williams. Kane Williams is a guy who could see the field this year, could not, might need some development time. Same with like Tommy Hill. Not one of those transfers. This is a guy who's going to come step in, and I think the coaching staff brought him here to play right away. Got to
do it. And you're so thin at the interior numbers that you either go young and trial by fire, baptism by fire, and maybe by the midpoint of the year, if you're healthy, it starts to click for you, or you get run over and you're needing to score 45 points a game to win football games, or you can't stop anybody, get off the field on 3rd down, and it's 8-minute drives galore against Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. With us on the horn is Paul. Paul, thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Do you know what we learned from him being ranked ahead of Sue?
Is that he was ranked in front of Sue. That's about it, right?
Nothing. Other than maybe that Sue was grossly underrated.
Well, I'll say this with Sue, and Sue was playing early for Coach Blake, but Sue didn't become Sue until the Pellinis got here.
For sure. but he also needed probably the development to get to that junior and senior year.
Right. It just doesn't happen overnight, man. All these great defensive linemen, for the most part, right? You see them by their redshirt sophomore year 3 in the programs when they pop. It's not a day one deal.
Absolutely. Positively can't agree with you more. I remember, I'm old enough to remember the days when you didn't touch the field till you were a junior at Nebraska.
Right, and you had 3 years to go get it handled.
Yeah.
Paul, good stuff. No, I'm all for it with the patience and perspective of rankings, because sometimes they're on and a lot of times they're not. So totally get you. Thanks for the phone call.
Well, you should also add here that Ndamukong Suh was not a youth football player. He was a youth football player. He was a soccer kid.
So you're going to go with the new to the game take?
Well, I mean, he played high school football, but yeah, he was new to the game, especially.
Suh probably killed people in Portland.
But you also
playing high
look at a
school
guy
football.
like Stephon Wynn going off to IMG Academy. I'm not sure if the reputation of IMG Academy is these guys who are guys who were dominating and were known in the middle school scene. They get into high school and they're getting recruited to come to a high school.
Well, your
to play.
best friends went to IMG.
Yeah, Brock Bando.
Yeah.
Brock went down to IMG, and he was just bigger than everyone else.
No, my point by bringing that up with I mean, you go to cut your teeth against the other greats.
Yeah, and it's because they've...
Not that you're playing who you play in high school. You can do an AFC East type schedule in IMG because they're playing Gorman out of Vegas. They're playing somebody out of Florida. I mean, they're based in Florida, but my point is they're playing like the who's who of high schools. Yeah, that's their schedule.
And it's because it's the guys that have been shown early in their lives to be guys who are going to be high level. And that's the type of guy you're getting in Stephon Wynn. This is a guy who, since late middle school years, early high school years, has probably known he was going to go be a Division I football player.
And has a good shot at playing Sunday.
And has been working with the type of people that can help you get there, that know what it takes to get there. So it's one of those guys that, from what I've seen at Bama, you almost go with the athleticism he has. Like he shows it in tape, and it's against teams like Mercer. But you're seeing that athleticism where he's getting off blocks and he's getting down the line, and you go, man, if this guy can just put it all together, he could be really, really dominant.
He just needs game time, and he's not. That's what they are. That's where their program is. We're the 5th best defensive lineman in the country, borderline 5-star, for sure 4-star, hasn't seen the field at all in 4 years because they just keep recruiting and developing high-level talent. So where is Nebraska at on the rest of the recruiting trail? Jaden Green was in. Make that Jaden Doss, the wide receiver, Dylan Edwards, the Bill Bush trio. And what's your take here when it comes to the receiver spot, Marcus Washington? So you had Tyler Coleman put out a tweet that is declaring Marcus Washington in for Nebraska. That was a Twitter post by Coleman. Coleman's a scout analyst for Elite Team Sports. I don't know if that's a recruiting service, if it's kind of a training center. I don't know. It's not a Rivals 24/7 Hail Varsity on 3 announcement. I don't believe an official announcement's come yet from Marcus Washington.
And I don't know enough about this guy to say, yeah, he's on the money. He knows what he's talking about. He could honestly...
He could have inside track and just be kind of a periphery guy that's putting it out there.
But he could also just be a guy who saw one crystal ball prediction on 24/7 and said, I'm going to be ahead of this one. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to try to get my name out there.
Got a 50% chance. Yeah. Right? Nebraska's chances for a really good prospect in Caden Green look a little bit brighter. A, because of Bill Bush getting him to campus 3 times, but B, sounds like things went well. We'll hear more from Greg Smith shortly, but really a good connection with Coach Raiola. It sounds, and listen, the worry and concern on Raiola was the dude's not done a lot in college. I know he was at Notre Dame. I know he played at Wisconsin, but he's been in the NFL forever. I think just sitting with him and talking to him, he's a man of few words. He's pretty direct, and he's no nonsense, no BS. So you're getting the personality you're going to play for. sometimes it's, shall we say, an act. It's a fairy tale during the recruiting trip, as old Steve Warren used to say. And then here comes the reality/nightmare once they get you here, right? There's a difference. So Nebraska part of his top 5. 4 more officials happening for Green in this month and into June. Nebraska is going to have to fight like hell against Oklahoma, against LSU, against Michigan, against Missouri. And he's a Kansas City kid. Now, Miami and Coach Cristobal booted out in favor of LSU. So LSU is down there, and I know Coach Kelly, whatever you think of him, has had really good offensive lines. Wall at Notre Dame, and that's where he builds his offenses around, the offensive line. Missouri, give them credit. LSU's been no stranger either with talent down there, and OU's done really well with some of their offensive linemen they've put in the league. But a great first impression and kind of affirmed impression by Raiola with Caden Green. We'll hear from Greg Smith, get his take on the rest of the weekend, thoughts on Stephon Wynn. It's Hail Varsity on a Monday. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh, the man knows how to make an entrance. It's Greg Smith, HailVarsity.com and magazine recruiting insider. And can find him on Twitter at GregSmithHV. Find us, well, streaming live here. ESPN Lincoln Facebook, ESPN Lincoln Twitter, and Greg Smith in the plush recruiting office is all set to talk. Greg, what do you know, man? How you doing?
Oh, I am very well. You know, this is always a nice part to end the day, right? Like, this is the last thing I do. Yeah, this is the last thing I do for the day. And then after this, man, I would say I get on the grill, but I don't have anything ready.
It's Joe Mama's birthday. It's my mom's birthday today. Okay. She's going the other way, so she's 68 today. She was 69 yesterday, so we're going the other way. But we're going to Billy's tonight for a special birthday. So no grill for me, but a steak is in my future, my man.
Yeah, over the weekend I had my wife's birthday is coming up, so we went and celebrated early over the weekend. So I did have some good eats and drinks over the weekend.
Greg, just briefly here, just a reminder to anyone listening on the air, we're streaming this live, ESPN Lincoln's Facebook and Twitter. And you got to tell me what your lighting setup is in there. That lighting you got just looks beautiful.
You have one of those circular deals going on?
I do. Oh. It's right up there. You can't see it. It's right over there in the corner.
Appropriate Hollywood lighting.
Yeah. We got a little pro lighting setup going on in here.
There we go. So we're talking meat and steak because we always do. How many old 96ers could Stephon Wynn put down?
Quite a few, it looks like, and that's okay because you need guys that can put some stake away to be in the middle of your defensive line in the Big Ten, right? I think that's a really nice pickup for Nebraska this weekend. You felt pretty good. It was starting to go that way. It really came down to Nebraska and Georgia Tech for Stephon Wynn, but I think that he'll be a really nice rotational piece at least for Nebraska moving forward this season.
What was the decider? I mean, it felt like to your sources and you, when we talk a couple of times a week, it's Wynn and Georgia Tech. Man, that's going to be tough. He's a South Carolina kid, but what flipped it, and who do you think had his ear most from Nebraska? Aside from the obvious, look, there's time to play here. There's an interior spot to be won.
Yeah, I think one of the things here is that you were able to, with a guy, he's from South Carolina, right? And so, you have Sean Beckton, who gets involved in that recruitment because basically everyone from the South gets to talk to Sean Beckton at some point because he does so well with guys from down there. And you're right, part of this is the opportunity to come to Nebraska and be a piece on that defensive line. But also, I think Nebraska has some momentum and excitement around what's going on with them right now. And it's one of those things that, man, it's tough because I know people, joke about winning the offseason and all of that. But you can't deny that Nebraska has done a good job this offseason. Like, if you wanted to lay out before this all started, how Nebraska put themselves in position to be able to try and make some noise this year, the things that have happened this offseason with all of the additions is the way. And so I think that it's a little bit easier to get a guy excited about coming in at Nebraska right now than maybe, say, Georgia Tech, who also has a coach approaching the hot seat. But I think that given the different additions Nebraska has had, I think that ends up winning out. Let's
talk use for a moment with Stephon Wynn, Greg, and at 6'4", 308, ranking out of high school, out of IMG, was a defensive end, but he's played on the interior. Bama's put 11 guys into the NFL just on the interior alone since 2016, and that's second, third, first, sixth, seventh. I mean, it runs the gamut, right? It's not all first and second rounders. So is he a three-down guy? When you've watched Wynn's film, do you like what he can do when it comes to getting after the quarterback, or is he more of a plugger, or does he do both? I mean, where's his fit next to Robinson potentially?
Yeah, I think that he can do a little bit of both. He's a little more nimble than you think for a guy that size. But I do think that when you look at him, you really think of someone that can help provide to help fortify that run defense a little bit. And I think that's what Nebraska really needs. I mean, you got, I think, with the other defensive tackle that they picked up, Devin Drew, a guy that can really get after the quarterback a little bit more. But then having Stephon Wynn allows you to still stay flexible up front too, right? Is that if you're in a situation where he needs to play some nose, I think you can do that with him. And I think you can also do some stuff where you still put him in as that second or that other defensive tackle and more of that 4-3, as it looks like they're going to play a little bit more of that. I think that he ends up giving them a really nice piece that can be now part of a bigger rotation. As you start the more you can expand that group of guys up front, the better off they're going to be, especially given where they were at the end of spring.
Greg, whenever I just look at this defense as a whole right now, I just think of the versatility. When you look at the fact that you have a defensive lineman in Devin Drew that can come in on third downs, but you also have a run stuffer and Wynn you've brought in. The secondary, you have such a wealth of riches there that you could bring in 5 defensive backs on a third down, maybe take out Isaac Gifford. It just feels like this defense has the opportunity to be extremely multiple in 2022.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Now, on one hand, though, I think that can be really, really good and that you can match up with the variations of offenses that you're going to see in the conference. The only thing that worries me a little bit about that is that when you are that multiple and don't have the experience, does that end up having guys swimming in it, as they say, right? If you end up in that type of a situation. And I think the defensive coaches are very good. They have the ability to really drill things down and get guys specific packages that they can really work on. But I worry about that a little bit. But you're right. I think that they have the ability to be really multiple and can be, I think as time goes on, if the offense can start off hot and help the defense along at the beginning of the season, I think the defense can be pretty dang good by the time you get to conference play, like the meat of conference play they start with a conference game.
Greg Smith is with us, recruiting insider, HailVarsity.com and magazine, at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. Greg, big weekend visitor list, Caden Green, Jaden Doss, Dylan Edwards, do it all back out of Kansas as well. We've highlighted Bill Bush's impact in that Kansas City and Kansas region. How did things go with Green and Raiola? I mean, what are you hearing about the visit for Green? Big-time offensive tackle Nebraska's going to have to fight to get. And then the rest of the weekend, a good lineup for Nebraska this past weekend.
This was a really good, and I feel bad saying it this way, but you'll get it. It was a really good appetizer for what's going to come later. And it's hard to call that group of guys an appetizer, but when we get into June, I think that first weekend of June is going to have double-digit visitors easily. But this weekend was very good. It highlighted, like I said, by Caden Green. From what I'm hearing right now, that visit went really well. I think Nebraska has done a really nice job both times that they've had him on campus. And remember, back when they had him on campus during the spring, Nebraska had some ground to make up. I wasn't sure kind of where they were in that process. And then boom, he does the visit and they're safely in his top 5, right? Then he was going to get an official visit. I think they had a similar impact on this past visit this weekend from what I'm hearing. I know he really liked his time with Coach Donovan Raiola, and that has been consistent, though, with offensive linemen that I've talked to this cycle and in the 24 cycle that have spent time with him. They really like the way that he kind of approaches recruiting and going about his business and getting on the whiteboard with him. I think Nebraska set a really nice bar when it comes to Caden Green's official visit group.
Yeah, and Greg, we've heard that a couple times now about Raiola wanting to when he gets a recruit in here, to go to the whiteboard and watch the film and see what kind of impact this guy would make. And when you look at all the things Nebraska has going for it with the NIL and with this new facility that's being built right next to the stadium, are you surprised that the selling points is still what you can do on the field for us as opposed to all these great things Nebraska has off the field, or is it kind of a combination? What are you hearing from the recruits?
No, I think it's a combination, and I think that's encouraging, right? I think that's the best thing. I think that at some point you want to not have it slanted so much towards, I can come in and play early, but you also don't want to have it heavily slanted towards, I think they can put together an NIL package, and you don't want it all in on, the facility is going to be really awesome, right? You do want it to be a little bit of a mix of all of that, because at the end of the day, you do need to be able to win football games, and you need to be able to help develop these guys to help get them to the next level. I think that one of the things that, especially with Raiola, even though we've not seen him coach here at Nebraska in a game, something that those offensive line recruits talked about is his ability to develop and get them to kind of understand the concepts that he's trying to convey to them just on these recruiting visits. And that I find really interesting in what it means going forward for his recruiting and for what we see out of the development of the players that are already on the team.
Greg, the pro style that Raiola wants to run with what Nebraska's offense will look like under him and Whipple, I mean, that connects because the guys they're bringing in, they want to play on Sundays. Right. And granted, eat what's on your plate first with picking a college and then doing well. But it seems like some of the personality matches are there. No bells and whistles. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes, and here's how you can fit, and here's how we think you can thrive in Lincoln. So good impression to your point about Raiola early with some of these big-time linemen. Still wide out, Jaden Doss. I thought on him. Greg, a couple of minutes here. We may need to hold you over. Dylan Edwards as well. And then I want to take on Marcus Washington. But of these other 3 names I laid out here, where's Nebraska at in that race? With the 2 high school kids, Dawson and Edwards. Let's start there.
Yeah, I think in both cases, I think Nebraska's in a pretty good position. I really like their spot with Doss. I think that's a guy that Bill Bush had recruited hard, and I think that they have a really good plan for him. And he's a kid that I really like. I think that it's hard to call a kid underrated that's got double-digit offers, but I do think that he's a little bit underrated. Jaden Doss is about 6'1", 200, former running back, and you can kind of tell that when you pop the film on, by the way that he seeks contact, I'll say, when he catches the football, which is something that I think that Husker fans will kind of perk up at. And Dylan Edwards is a kid that we were kind of unsure about where Nebraska was in that race. You hear about Oklahoma, that Kansas State is recruiting him hard, but I'm not sure how hard Oklahoma is pushing for him at this point, which is Nebraska's advantage because they can really get in there with him. And he's a dynamic player, was Gatorade Player of the Year in Kansas last year, piled up a lot of stats. It's kind of a do-it-all player. He can run the ball out of the backfield. He can line up in the slot, and I think that it would be appealing to him to play in an offense that can showcase all of those skills, and that's what Nebraska is pitching to him.
Greg Smith is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Greg, about a minute here on Marcus Washington, bud. And what's your timeline for him? And is this a luxury or a need for Nebraska when we talk numbers to maybe bring him in from Austin?
It feels a little bit like a luxury only because I know that people are thinking, dang, another wide receiver, where's the offensive lineman at? But you can't just make an offensive lineman in the portal, right? There have to be guys there that you want to take. You'd rather have Nebraska get another skilled guy that can contribute than to get to reach on an offensive lineman. As far as the timeline goes, I would expect that announcement at any time between Nebraska and Purdue. I feel really good about Nebraska's chances on that one. If Nebraska can bring in Washington, that's a nice get from a transfer point of view, but also getting back in St. Louis.
Greg, the Twitter sphere would lead you to believe that that's a done deal. Washington's already picked Nebraska. You believe it?
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot. I still feel very good about
Greg's like, yeah, I know something. I got to wait. Stay tuned to Greg Smith on Twitter. On Twitter, getting choked up for you, Greg. At Greg Smith HV. Thanks so much, Greg.
I got this one. Greg, thank you. Have a good one. Be good. And we'll be back after the break.
Hello, listener. This is Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price of $29.99. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@hailvarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
For those concerned, I'm okay. Dan tweets in the classic part of Dumb and Dumber where Harry stops the little sweet elderly woman in the motorized cart and takes off to go get some more money for the nudie magazine stand. It's like, don't you go dying on me. That's the perfect gift that Dan said. I don't know what happened other than I just got choked up talking with Greg Smith and of course Elijah. When it comes to Nebraska recruiting.
Yeah, recruiting will do that to you.
Yeah, no kidding. Right? Some tears of joy, some tears of sorrow, depending on how much you get into it. So we have open phones here till 6. Charlie McBride, check that. Open phones till 5. We'll have Coach McBride and then Jay Moore on next hour, 466-377-6800-825. 5865, a quick word on Nebraska baseball. I thought Will Bolt very, very stand up yesterday, or check that on Saturday, with his team winning 10-9, and then Purdue and Maryland deciding not to play.
Yeah, with the weather that was going down out in West Lafayette, big rainstorm, and I mean, if I'm Purdue, I'm fighting to get that game canceled too.
Right, because Purdue did enough to handle their business and finish 8th. Nebraska and Omaha will be hosting the Big Ten tournament this week. And long and short, man, Nebraska was your preseason favorite first. Second of all, had opportunities all year long against Minnesota, against Michigan State Thursday night, Illinois. I mean, if you tie that thing or just cancel it, Nebraska still gets in. And it's kind of a hose job, but quite frankly, you make your bed you lie in, and Nebraska made this bed, and Will Bolton knows that. Will Bolton knows that it wouldn't have done any good to light up the league, which would have been his right, and many of you did on Twitter towards the Big Ten in baseball. So I get it, but overall, it just comes down to leadership for this Nebraska baseball team, and you had a number of guys that are really good players that had their moments, but didn't take that mantle. The gritty group of dudes last year that moved on showed you and left you. You didn't pick it up and do it the right way. Between injury, not your fault. Between dismissals, totally your fault. And then some of your approaches offensively. So the result is this. You're going to have a whopping 7 or 8 dudes come in from JUCO to take your job, and you can either fight to win it or goodbye. But those guys will come in with urgency and no doubt attack baseball a better way. Nebraska baseball fans hoping for next season, but tough for Will Bolt. I thought Tom Chattel had a really good column over the weekend on Nebraska's ups and downs this baseball season. And you want to be quick to anoint and just say, okay, this is going to be how it works with Will Bolt in Nebraska baseball. Not every year is going to be last season. Not every year is going to be a regional or super regional. But I do have faith that Will Bolt will get it corrected, figured out, him and Coach Christie, and, of course, the rest of the crew down there know how to win baseball. They're about baseball. And they'll get it turned around. But this year was tough. They had some talent, but they also had some injuries, and quite frankly, they had immaturity out of some older guys that, well, at this point they either learn or need to know, and if they don't, then you're kind of stuck with it.
But let's not sit here and act like the Husker baseball team, which is probably more popular than
it's
the
not
entirety
in the
of the
same
Big Ten as a
position
whole.
Of football or basketball.
But the support that Nebraska has for baseball is greater than every other Big Ten school, and finishing outside the Big Ten tournament spots is unacceptable. And it's,
sure,
you can't make a habit of it as a coach. If Will Bolt is winning the tournament 3 years out of 5, but the other 2 years he's missing the Big Ten tournament, are Husker fans going to be happy? Yes, that you're winning the Big Ten, but you'd have to make some serious noise in true postseason, NCAA postseason, if you want to make a habit of missing the Big Ten tournament. That is simply underneath the level of Husker baseball.
Well, and this is a league this year that's going to get Maryland and probably Rutgers, and whoever wins the Big Ten tournament is the third team if it isn't Maryland or Rutgers. It's a bad league this year. It's a down league. I shouldn't say bad. It's a down league this year. It's not 4 or 5 bids from yesteryear. It's not a Nebraska baseball squad facing a team that has a squad like Indiana that goes to the CWS, or even a Michigan, right? Michigan was toe-to-toe with Vandy not long ago for the title, and they had a 1-0 lead up in Omaha. So this compounds a lot of things where you have some dudes coming back. You're favored. You've got a league that's not as strong as it was, so you shouldn't mow over them. And then on top of it, your home state's hosting the Big Ten tournament. I mean, that's 4 things that you just failed miserably at.
And I think this season for Husker baseball would be a bigger gut punch if it wasn't for the gut punch you already got in the fall with football and the gut punch you already got in the winter with basketball. I mean, I personally think that this Husker baseball season could be considered the most disappointing of the 3, even despite how bad the other seasons were, just because of the preseason expectations.
You'd already won something.
You had won last year. You thought this team was back under Will Bolt, and then you get the gut punch of, man, this team is the 9th best in the Big Ten on a good day. Like,
it's a horribly slap in the face way to put it.
Well, that's what the season has been. It's been a slap in the face, and if this happened back in, say, 2013, I think it'd be a much bigger deal just how bad this Husker baseball season was. But when you compound it with the fact that the other men's sports have also been atrocious this year, I think Husker fans are just ready to move on to 2022.
Here's what I don't know. As a baseball fan base, at what point did you eject and say this year ain't going to go the way it's going to go? I'm checking my emotions at the door because I got hyped up for basketball. They were garbage. I got hyped up for football. Totally had the football pulled out from me by Lucy 100 times in 1-score games. All of that it was transitive over to baseball. Well, let's go in on all baseball if you're a Nebraska fan, because darn it, you're defending conference champs. You got talent back. It's all set up for you. And then to go do what you did. And the bandwagon, though, if we're talking about Husker fandom, football's kind of always a constant, right? But the basketball and then baseball bandwagon, I mean, they fill up big time very quickly. And it's fun because it's not always going to happen, nor is it expected to happen. But when basketball's good, man, there's nothing like it. When baseball's rolling, they go to Omaha, there's nothing like it. You still remember those moments. And people, the fan base has grown and solidified, and it's become stronger because of successful teams in baseball and basketball, but it's still not this football expectation, right? We'll wind down in hour one. We'll give you a chance here shortly to beef up your backyard. Hail Varsity, we're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, this first hour, can always check the podcast out. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Subscribe, give us a rating. And thanks to all of you who continue to subscribe and check out the podcast. Also, the Hurrdat family of podcasts. Awesome content for you with Aaron Sorensen, Greg Smith in the Straight Up Breakdown, Derek Peterson, Dr. Petey, the Varsity Club. And then you have Jacob Badilli with two different podcasts during the week. One with Damon Benning that's really awesome on Prep Sports. Nick Baugh, Matt Schick and Nick. And, of course, the Nick Baugh podcast. So that is something for you. Also, always, and then Brandon Vogel, the I-80 preview is really good when it comes to getting geared up for Nebraska and those Saturdays in the fall. 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Numbers to get in for this first hour. We'll wind down and no doubt have plenty from Coach McBride. What's he think of Stephon Wynn? It's a big-time get for Nebraska. The D-line is shaping up. Reminder to get buckled up. That's always a must. And when it comes to the seatbelt and what it does for you, 1 out of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska. That involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances? If you drink, don't drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office.
Schmitty, before we get out of here this hour, it was opening weekend for Summer Legion Baseball. I want to get that update from you. Yeah,
it was good. We were over at Millard West Saturday and then 2 for Sunday in junior squad. The Remax Silverhawks 3-0. So Junior got an inning in game 2 against Westside. It was a 7-run lead, so it was safe to put him on the hill. And he got out of it, no runs allowed, thanks to his second baseman, Caleb Bolte, snagging a line shot for a game-ending double play. He hit the baseball really well to the right kid 3 times yesterday and made it on base safely. 2 errors and probably an infield hit. And he played decent third base. So, no, great group of kids that he's with. The coaches are really good dudes, and they know baseball. They do a great job. So, this weekend we are in Kearney, 3:30 Friday. So you and Dolman got the show Friday, and then we don't play again till, I think, 5:30 Saturday night for baseball. So we'll have the weekend edition, and then we've got the parents going out to Cunningham's, man, on the lake. Got a reservation set up. We did our show there last summer, if you remember. The good folks there had us out, so we're going to go probably have a pint or several before game time and get it rolling. And we love our listeners out in Kearney Hastings, Grand Island with Duda and Company and ESPN Superstation out there. So we're going to be rocking and rolling out there Friday, Saturday, and hopefully deep into the weekend. Get you qualified right now to beef up your backyard with your friends at ESPN Lincoln. So the Smoky Mountain Cooker Smoker from Capitol Patio and the gift card to Russ's Market, $100 in value. Get qualified now. Caller 9. Caller 9, 466-3776. Caller 9, 466-3776. Coach McBride next on Hail Varsity. Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt. with Hail Varsity. And I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Thanks for spending time. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Into Hour 2, we welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie. Coach, how was the weekend? How are you?
Oh, it's good. It was a nice weekend and a lot of wind, but it was good. You know, it got a lot of flowers planted, right?
Well, there you go. What's the flower of choice? Are you going roses? Do you have daisies? I mean, help me out.
They're too hard. We just go out and grab a bunch of them that look good and then plant them in our pots because we don't have much grass here.
Gotcha. Well, send me a pic of that. I'd like to see all the different colors you have.
Oh yeah, we can do that.
Around that one's for Oklahoma. That one's for K-State, right? I mean, I'm sure they're designated. That one's for Nebraska.
The Big 12 flower garden. I guess you can do a Big 8 flower garden.
You can do the Big 8 flower garden, or even the Big 10 right now. I mean, you do what you want. You do what you want. But
well, our flowers are all black and red.
Okay.
Oh, beautiful.
There we go. So it's all Nebraska centric. I like it. Black flowers. I guess you can get them. I love it. Coach, I thought Nebraska did pretty well this weekend in the transfer portal. They got a kid that we were talking about last week that was trying to decide on Nebraska. Stephon Wynn is his name, and big-time defensive tackle that used to play for Coach Saban at Alabama, made his announcement last night. He's coming to Lincoln. What do you think?
Well, that's good. I mean, I don't know how much time does he have left?
He'll have 2 years to play.
Yeah, well, that'll help because I think that's important. Sometimes guys only have 1 year, and it may be that some of them, have 2, but if they do a good job and probably going to go to the draft the way things are now, there seems to be, it used to be 1 and out, and then and pretty soon it's 3 and out, I guess, if you want to say it that way. After your junior year, you can go. So it'll be hard to tell, until the end of the year how that falls out, but. If you have 3 years left, he's at least 2 probably for sure, and that's good. That's a good thing because they get a chance to learn the system, do it right, and and I think that really it helps overall whether he's the starter or whether he's a backup. Mm-hmm. It's just a good thing to have defensive linemen that can rotate. And give you, and that's where you get your good pass rush. Usually, when you got guys that are fresh and can go in there, and they get a couple of downs off, in between series, and so I think that's where a lot of these guys will really get to improve. I think at Nebraska.
Charlie McBride's with us on Monday with Charlie. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're talking Stephon Wynn. As he's been added to the Nebraska roster. When you have Drew and O'Shawn Mathis to go along with Robinson and then some of the other kids, the polar bear that's there. You mentioned that depth. Coach, what was your approach? Because I know you worked really well with the defensive linemen when it came to kids who came in, and what was the process for you and them to get more time on the field? How did they work their way up from the start of their career? And when did the light kind of click on for them? Mm-hmm. It's different, I know, for different kids, but overall, it's not something that happens even in that first year usually, is it, to play right away on the defensive line?
Well, I think the biggest thing we did is we geared a lot of our stuff to fundamentals and, playing blocking schemes. We had more, probably more running plays and more different schemes as far as the running game went than they have now because they throw the ball so much, and so they can't spend a lot of time doing that. And that zone scheme is, in some cases has been, one of the only major plays that a lot of teams have run other than tricks, but they run it out of different, formations and everything else. But we had a lot more traps and power plays and guards pulling and tackles pulling and all kinds of things like that. And we were able to read the blocking schemes, and that was the biggest thing that they learned. There was a lot of good players, but if they couldn't get in a game, and do the right things, then it takes some time to play. So, maybe a great player is a backup player for a year or so before he gets to, really get going. And then again, there's some guys that pick it up right now. Mm-hmm. And so those are the things you're looking for. I think that I never had anybody that I felt like you could say couldn't learn it, as far as the mental part of the game, as far as, just pick up things in a pretty quick manner. I didn't have any of that. I don't think I can remember anybody that, was that way. So we were pretty lucky in that. And then we had some guys that were good leaders. And you go back in the secondary and so forth, we had, a couple of guys, some guys that started early and could really help the younger guys out a lot, even during the game.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Well, I know you're close with Coach Saban. You really helped him when he was at Michigan State, and I'm sure you've stayed in touch from time to time, and Nebraska's landed a couple of his former kids. What'd you think of Jimbo and Nick's dust-up last week?
I thought that was something beautiful. Yeah, I'll tell you. The thing is they're still friends. They can say all they want to say. They've worked together, and they'll slow down. Let me tell you what, because both of them probably got a little shaky somewhere in the background, and then if you start really throwing punches, then both you end up not doing so hot. But I think that's going to calm down pretty fast. I think a lot of it will be promoted by the press. They'll want to keep it going. A lot of times, and that's the sad part about it. They want to they'll find something and to keep it going, and so they can have something to write about over the summertime.
Coach Charlie McBride's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, I actually don't know how you're going to answer this one, so you don't have to name any names, but were there any moments where you had a confrontation with other coaching staffs, either pregame or postgame? Was that common, or is there usually more respect in those times?
Well, I never did. I don't think there was. I don't think Coach Osborne ever did either. I think if somebody was out of hand on another staff as far as recruiting and it was doing something a little shaky, Coach Osborne would usually call the head coach and talk to him. And I never heard him come up and say somebody was, going. I think the only guy we had a long time when I first went there was SMU. The head coach was really non-committal to anything. He'd call them and tell them what's going on. They were cheating so bad that I mean, it was outright, and they didn't hide it. I mean, that's a sad thing. You know, I mean, they didn't even try, and so it was, you know, that those are the things that I think was, as far as I was concerned, you know, we would, you know, we played Oklahoma, and sometimes, you know, Coach Tennifer and I would fish with some of those guys. Mm-hmm. You know, in the summertime down in Oklahoma, we'd get down there fishing with them, and you know, there might be some sign language flipped across the field, you know, when they scored or we scored or something. But it was all in fun, you know, and you know, that wouldn't be called a confrontation really, but we were pretty lucky. We had the people in the league that I know of that were around were, you know, Bill Snyder and them. They were really, really good people, so there wasn't a lot of problems.
You mentioned and referenced SMU, and that was Ron Meyer. Old Ron Meyer brought his Vegas act down to Dallas, Fort Worth, didn't he? And yeah, I could see him. And then he went off to the NFL before they got hammered, Coach, with the NCAA.
Yeah, well, I had a friend on the staff one time when I happened to be doing a thing. It was a little short documentary. Actually, it was for the Canadians. It was a Canadian company that did it, but I was in Dallas, and I was with one of the doing it with one of the Cowboy coaches or recruiters and stuff like that. They just to show how the Cowboys were recruiting, and I was kind of a dummy on this thing, you know, where they're asking questions to a college coach. But you know, overall, what they did was they. A friend of mine, I don't think he cares if I use his name, was Steve Sidwell, was on the staff, and Steve was a player at Colorado when I was a graduate assistant there, and so I knew him pretty well. And he had come to I had come down there upstairs at the hotel where I was staying at the same place, and he had this recruit there. And he just said, I'm going over to the bank and we're going to buy this guy. You know, I mean, that's exactly what he said. And then going to the bank, I remember, geez, the guy's going to the bank. And, you know, and Steve was the kind of guy that wouldn't, you know, I didn't think he'd ever say anything like that, but that's exactly what he said. And then we had a guy threaten his father's job when we were trying to recruit a kid who was being recruited by SMU, that if he went there, his father would lose his job. And he happened to be the manager at one of the soft drink companies, and so, you know, stuff like that. And I know that Coach Osborne called there and didn't get any satisfaction out of the head coach because his basic words were, "I can't control the alumni." And I think that's what you're going to see right now. I think that's the same old as. You know, in Dallas, there's a lot of competition with all the schools, and you know, just as far as one little place is concerned, you know, they get going to get in a golf course, they start competing with each other and say, well, we can get this guy, you know, let's see who can get him, and then that's where I think the coaches kind of disappear and they kind of do their own thing, and you know, so that's what happened to SMU, a lot of it, I think. You know, a lot of it was not necessarily the coaches, but a lot of people off campus.
You had a lot of rich dudes in Dallas that wanted their football team to have bragging rights come Monday or Saturday at the club, man. You're right about it. Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, Nebraska had a bunch of kids in from Kansas this weekend, and Bill Bush doing a really nice job down in Kansas, and was that one of the areas you were focused in on? And just spend a little bit, about a minute and a half here on that region. It's got a lot of good talent down there, doesn't it?
Well, we always had, you know, the players that we got down there, they were all players. I mean, they all played. I mean, we didn't have anybody come and leave or anything like that. We had some good kids, and you know, they were good. They were like Nebraska kids. I mean, they, you know, the same thing. You know, like in Iowa, those kids all are workers, and they all come from farms, and they come from, places that, most of them have been in small towns and stuff like that. So it was kind of a common, common thing to not feel like you're in another state, really. Yeah. When you went down there, and we were close enough so that the parents could get to the games, and there wasn't any concern about that. So it's a kind of a area that I think in the past, when Bill Steiner started going, he went through the junior college route because he couldn't compete with the recruiting part of it with Missouri and Nebraska and Kansas, and he went and he started his program through the junior college route, and then of course broke into now he's got guys. He had players that went on and played in the NFL and everything else, and became, a very good football program. It all goes. But Kansas was always a good, solid people.
Mm-hmm. Charlie McBride's with us, Coach. We'll do this again. We'll send you some warmer weather the latter part of the week, and we'll talk on next Monday. How's that sound?
Okay, we'll do it.
Well, appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you next week.
See you, Coach.
Okay.
There he goes, Coach McBride. I love hearing the SMU stuff.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I love that documentary Podia XS, but yeah, it's out of your hands, man. The alumni is taken over.
Love talking with Charlie. I could always feel like we'd talk forever with him, but he clearly had another phone call to get to.
No, that's all right. Good to hear from him, and good stuff on the D-line development. That segment will be posted on ESPN Lincoln's Twitter handle, ESPN Lincoln On Demand, and, of course, the podcast, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay Moore on the way next.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Black Shirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. We welcome in Black Shirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore back with us, golf aficionado. He's pretty darn good as well. And then, of course, you know what he did on the gridiron. Jaybird, how was the weekend?
It was good. Got to play a little golf yesterday afternoon, watch a little golf, so it was good. It was a well-executed weekend on my end.
What was your takeaway with the PGA Championship? Justin Thomas against Zalatoris. The playoff was pretty fascinating, and I felt bad for Zalatoris on a couple of putts that just didn't have enough giddy-up. But, man, the fact that Pereira faltered like he did at 18, there's a couple, 3 instances on that back 9 where he'd love a do-over. Not necessarily an awful shot, but just maybe some choices.
Yeah, you know what? Everyone's like texting me like, man, I can't believe he hit 3-iron off the tee, and that's on that last hole.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, he also, absolutely painted one right down the middle of the fairway all the other 3 days. He played the hole well all week, so, and I always say, kind of under the gun, that's a long hole. That's a 490 par 4 uphill on your second shot. And the last thing you want to do is kind of miss a 3-iron. All of a sudden you got a 4-iron or a 3-iron into that green. And they already know it's one of the most brutal greens on the golf course. So, I can't fault him. I mean, it's going to be a learning experience. He hung in there so well. I know people are like, well, he kind of, it was gifted to Justin. I don't know. Justin played his tail off on Sunday. He earned that. And it's just a hard golf course. You had 2 days of really warm weather, then it turned into 2 days of really chilly weather, just kind of the same issue we had here weather-wise here in Nebraska. So, I mean, it's tough. Yeah, I think, people are like, Mito Pereira will have a lot of scar tissue from this. Yeah, but I think it'll be good scar tissue. I think he'll be able to build on this. He can compete, he can perform, and he can use this as a learning lesson. And then just kind of gets more validation for Justin Thomas. We know how well he's been playing. He hasn't been getting the results that he wants, but sometimes golf's a goofy game. You got to be patient. You got to wait for your opportunities, and he got one, and he capitalized on it. And then he had to go play well in a 3-hole aggregate playoff. And Will Zalatoris has really come on the scene here the last 2 or 3 years, and golf dorks like me have known about him for a long time. But he's really stepped on the scene the last couple of years. He had a chance to win the Masters last year, and has kind of played up and down this year. But being a kid that's from Texas, golf courses like that will suit him well. So no surprise he was in there, and it was kind of a fun Sunday because it was about it seemed about a 6-man race there for the last 9 holes, and then this is a tough golf course. I mean, so I've never played it, but it's a long, brutal golf course where that Bermuda rough it gets up, your ball sits down, and you get some firm and fast greens, and if you can't control your spin, then good luck. Getting around on some of those grainy Bermuda, tight areas, those are hard to chip off of as well. So, yeah, I mean, just like I said, validates Justin, gets him a second PGA, and we'll see if he can, parlay this into playing well in the U.S. Open here next month.
Yeah, Justin, 7 strokes back, I think. He had an awesome Sunday. Can't get over that. But he went to the University of Alabama, and he was asked after the tournament if he follows the same 24-hour celebration rule that Nick Saban has. You can enjoy it for 24 hours, then it's on to the next one. Yeah. And he said, yeah, I've got a 24-hour rule. I'm not sure what Jimbo Fisher's rule is, but I guess he's got to win something first before he figures out his rules. I mean, this is just the story of Saban and Jimbo. It's just not going away. It's even in golf.
No, it's it's everywhere right now. I mean, it's just, and that it's kind of, well, because we know it's because somewhat of it. I mean, Texas A&M. I mean, the dollar amount they put towards on NIL is, this is our first year of kind of experiencing it. But I mean, it was crazy. We know there's a lot of wealthy, A&M alums down in, in Texas, and I'm sure a lot of them have that good oil money that they're, never going to run out of. But yeah, that's a gift that keeps on giving, right? So far this year. So good by Justin for mentioning that and layering on top. But man, it's those two. Obviously have been on the same staff before. Know each other well. But I don't expect any lengthy conversations at midfield. After they get done playing here in the near future.
I want to find a sideline pass, me and the rest of the world, so I can watch the pregame warm-ups, because usually guys will jaw or just chat because, I don't know, you've coached with the guy for almost a decade, so we'll see if there's any nice time. Tiger Woods withdrawing after shooting a 79 third round and 9 over at Southern Hills. Tiger touched on the fact he's sore, and he's going to do some work to see how it goes. Do you expect Tiger to get back after it this season, or is it just something he'll be very, very cautious of? Already cautious. I mean, it's pretty monumental that he was able to get out to Southern Hills and also stuck it out for Augusta.
Yeah, I mean, I fully expect him, now he's played in the PGA, I fully expect him to play, next month at the U.S. Open, So, I would foresee him doing that. Only other reason if he looks in there and is like, hey, is there any other stress fracture or something going on where you cause more damage? But, I mean, the guy's made the cut the first 2 majors after almost losing a leg and never knowing if he's going to be able to play golf again. And, I know he struggled the last 2 days as well at Augusta, but it just kind of, the guy is, I mean, he's literally playing on a half a leg, or, and on Saturday, it literally looked like one leg. He could hardly finish on his golf swing. He had to kind of, pick up his back foot just to keep pressure off of it. He was in pain. It's hard. And then, and the thing is, too, is, people talk about your leg, but also when the temperature drops, and he's had how many back surgeries, 4 or 5? Mm-hmm. I mean, just dealing with the extreme temperature change, going from 90 degrees to 50 degrees, man, that's going to put a lot of pressure on that back as well. So I know that was half the battle, and he's got to be careful. He's got to look at it, weigh the pros and the cons of everything. But I mean, proving people wrong. He loves to compete, obviously, still. I don't foresee him, not playing in the the next two majors. I mean, he's the final British Open in in July. That's at St. Andrews this year. I mean, his favorite golf course in the world. So I foresee him, playing the U.S. Open. Maybe if the leg's okay, getting maybe a couple more tournament reps in there just to build on that. Because he can go out and play golf all he wants at home in Jupiter, Florida, but competitive golf is still a different animal, even how long he's played it. So I know he'll want the reps, but it's good to see him compete, shoots under par to make the cut, but also when you see him struggle, you see the pain. It's also hard to watch as a golf fan.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFL, our co-host, Big Red Wrap-Up, PGA Weekend. We'll get to the Husker recruiting news in a moment. At one point, will we finally see the ratio of cigarettes to Diet Cokes equal for John Daly? 21 Smoky Darts, 12 Diet Cokes in his 18 holes.
And a nice trip to the casino, too.
No, I know that. Well, don't forget Hooters. He went to Hooters, too.
I mean, Jesus, he's just like every other, 16 handicap on the weekends. That's an average day. Now, most people aren't drinking 12 Diet Cokes on the course. They're probably drinking more like 12, Busch Lights. Plus the 20 long darts, and you slip in a hot dog or two in there as well, and it's a solid weekend, right?
No kidding.
He's a thing of beauty, man. He's a thing of beauty. He's already had some health issues, and that man just does what he wants.
He loves it, and he's fun. I mean, the pants are one thing. What Happy Gilmore say? Goofy pants and a.
You talk my neighbor, the accountant.
Yeah.
He just lives by the mantra: here for a good time, not a long time.
Yep.
That's very true.
Well, Brother John was at least, in the lead briefly. Jay, let's switch gears. Stephon Wynn, a monster get for Nebraska. We go back in time to April 9th, and you have the departures of Payne, Rogers, Riley, and then we fast forward to now where there's Devin Drew, O'Shawn Mathis, Stephon Wynn. What D-line are you taking?
Man, probably the latter.
Mm-hmm.
Mathis is you got to kind of that was a huge get for Nebraska. That was, and just knowing some of the guys on the defensive staff, they were like, we got to get this guy. They knew that he can be a game changer for him. Mm-hmm. To give him some sort of edge pass rush threat that you need in all defenses, but especially in the 3-4. So that was big. The kid at Texas Tech, don't know a ton about him, but listen, anytime you can get guys who have played meaningful snaps, and obviously like the Big 12 or in SEC, you're gonna try to get them. And Wynn that they got out of Alabama, that's another big get. They're trying to get better in certain areas. I'll give them that. And I'm not ready to. Other than Mathis, I'm still hesitant to put like all my chips in the circle on him. Just there's always a reason. I know TCU had a coaching change and whatnot, but it's like there's always a reason why these guys are leaving. There's always something. So I'm always a little hesitant to be, oh man, this guy can completely change the defense. He can do this, he can do that. But it's always hard because when you're a JUCO transfer, you run out of time. It's a 2-year process. Some of these guys are leaving after a couple of years at a 4-year school. Why is this? Is it a playing time issue? Is it a behavioral issue? Is it a learning issue? Is it is it a disciplined issue? Or now you got to throw in it. Is it an NIL issue, which is a legitimate issue nowadays? So, that I'm always a little hesitant now with the NIL because guys are, looking for that next buck, making a quick buck, and then all of a sudden you just kind of get in that whirlwind cycle of jumping school to school, just what says these guys that come here play well and then boom, they're gone next year because, they're getting $500,000 from Texas A&M, name it, or whatever school, So that's I'm a little hesitant, but I like the moves they've made. The D-line's thin. You need to have some guys, and that's obviously the defense has been a strength of this team though since Frost has been here. So we got to kind of plug and replace, and then hang in there, and hopefully the offense kind of picks up their end of the deal.
A few more minutes. Jay Moore with us. We'll carry over another segment with Jay Bird. More on the Nebraska defensive line. Good insight on the PGA championships from Jay. And a further look on that D-line, not just with Wynn, but also what Shenander and company can do now that presumably Nebraska has its final defensive line piece. We'll continue on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Like what you hear, high-quality radio and podcast is part of what we do at Hail Varsity. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's HailVarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Jay Moore's with us. Couple more minutes. Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska's edition through the portal. And when you look at Wynn, this is just where the rankings are at recruiting-wise. Out of high school for Wynn, this was 2018 out of IMG, and he's a South Carolina kid. His ranking actually ranks higher than what Sue was ranked when you look at the 24/7 composite or the Rivals composite or the Rivals ranking. So, I mean, Sue was 6th or 7th in the country, and I think Wynn at the time was 5th or 6th. Now, I think Wynn might have been slated the defensive end, but at 6'4", 308, I mean, you just imagine him being plugged right in there next to Ty Robinson. And I know he had just shy of 70 snaps. Jay, I look at this as more of a, well, Bama's kind of printed first-round defensive lineman, right? It's just a matter of not getting on the field, and you're going into year 4. You have 2 to play with the COVID year. You just wonder if maybe there's more of an opening to play here in Lincoln than crack the rotation at Bama. I don't know. Time will tell with it, but just speak to what a guy of the skill set Wynn can do with Shenander's defense. Yeah, get after the ball carrier, but you've been around defenses that are really good as well at collapsing the interior of that pocket.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. It's defensive linemen, are viewed as, pass rushers, run stoppers, gap fillers. Mm-hmm. But in kind of the defense that Shenander runs, and we've implemented here the last 4 years going into year 5 is it's a 3-4, it can be a 4-3, they can kind of do a little bit of both. So you got to have guys that can do a little bit of both. Your old 3-4 guys are more of a 2-gap guys that eat up some blockers, let your linebackers run free and go make plays. And then a 4-3 is like, okay, I have my gap. I got to stay in this gap. My gap moves. I got to do my best to stay within it. A runner comes through my gap. I got to make the play because I'm only guy that's responsible for this gap. So having guys are able to do that and play both roles, I think is big. And obviously, then you can rush the passer on third down. That's even better if you have a little bit of that to you. You can sprinkle some of that in. I don't know if he can. I haven't watched film on the guy, but my guess is he has a little bit of that into him. Otherwise, he doesn't probably get offers from Alabama coming out of high school. That's just my guess. But you have to, just in this defense, you can't just be, you got to be multifaceted, and that's just in general, anyways, in this game, especially at this level, you got to be able to do multiple things, and I believe that's what he'll be able to do. And again, we'll see if he's able to come in here and day one and step in. He's going to add some more competition to that room, and I hope he brings up the play of the other guys that were, come out of spring ball feeling good about themselves. I hope that kicks up their gear and adds some more competition to that room, because that defense will go just as far as that D-line will go. So they're getting better in that room. That's going to make everyone better and make the team better.
Jay Moore's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Jay, I just want you to look at the style of defensive line in the SEC as compared to the style of defensive line in the Big Ten. Do you think it's a good match? It's a good fit for a guy to go from a great school in Bama, but an SEC school, and go move to a Big Ten school, only get a couple months there, and then really be expected to be a contributor early on during his time at Nebraska? Do you think that's reasonable?
Oh, very much so. I think, SEC style play, the size and physicality. I think Alabama and Georgia are, 1A, 1B. But, I look at, schools like, obviously we have Ohio State, we have Michigan, we have Iowa, we have Wisconsin. I'm thinking about offensive lines and just the ability to, to play against similar styles of physicality and bodies. I mean, I think we have the best, offensive lines in the nation. I don't even think that, that's close to the type of guys that come out every year, to be first round. I know Alabama does the same thing, and I don't know exactly what Georgia is, but I tell you what, you got to come to play when you're going to play Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, Wisconsin, maybe even throw, Illinois in that mix now just because of Bielema and his history of with being around Iowa and Wisconsin. I think they're always tough to play. And it's just, we don't get too many off weeks in the Big Ten, and either does the SEC unless you're playing Vanderbilt here in the last, 5-6 years. I don't care if you're playing Kentucky, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. You can't mess around. You got to bring it every single week, and that's what we got to do here in the Big Ten. It's not as I don't think it's as sexy as some people view the SEC. They might have some better athletes, they might have some better skill guys, but I tell you what, the brand of football in the Big Ten is just as physical and it's just as tough. And so I think that he will fare just fine in making this leap over.
Jay, you were a part of this with the transition, and Callahan and Coach Blake, they went pretty heavy JUCO, if memory serves. And how do you think some of the younger guys or guys that are still working their way up, the high school recruits, and I'm talking about Marquise Black, Roquan Buckley, you've got the Polar Bear, Jalen Weaver, you've got kids that are on campus now that aren't super long in the tooth. They've been in the program a while, but maybe not long enough. You had the COVID year that may have screwed up some development. How do you take that it's Wynn now, obviously, and it's all hands on deck, and if Nebraska gets a Mathis, a Wynn, and a Drew, how do you take that if you're some of these younger guys that are fighting for time?
Yeah, you just got to take it, and you can't sit and pout about it. You gotta take it as, okay, I gotta compete. I gotta earn my spot. I gotta do my job. I referenced, a little bit of that earlier, just saying, some of these guys might have felt pretty good coming out of spring ball about their spots. Now it's a little different. If you're an outside linebacker or a defensive tackle, you have 3 new bodies in here, and that's just kind of where it's going to be now. I think in college football, you're just going to have a little more turnover year after year, and until things are made, whether it's by the NCAA or the conferences, whatever it's going to be. But you got to embrace it. You got to love to compete. You got to love the challenge. You got to view it as a challenge. Say, the hell with Wynn, the hell with Masses, hell with these guys. Say, come try and take my spot. Come try to do this. I'm going to make it hard as hell on you. And that's just kind of the mentality you got to have. You got to love it. You got to love to prove people wrong, because they're doing this, and you could, in the back of your mind, it's like, yeah, maybe I respect Coach Dawson, I respect Coach Chenander, but the hell with you too, because I'm gonna prove you wrong. Because obviously you're bringing some guys in to think that I don't have the ability to do what needs to be done, and then take that as not necessarily saying an insult, but be a little jaded about it, be a little pissed off about it, and go prove yourself. So I think it's a good thing. Bringing talent into a room in any position is going to make everyone better. And whether those guys are going to step up, and then what you're going to get is the guys that don't want to deal with it, they're going to leave. you don't want those guys in your team anyway. So it's all around great for that room.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer and co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay, we'll do this again, bud. Thanks for some golf talk and some D-line, bud.
Yep, anytime. I'll talk golf and D-line any day.
Like what you hear? High-quality radio and podcasts are just part of what we do at Hail Varsity. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor. I wanted to offer listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you, for less than $20, can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good show today. Big thanks to Jay Moore and Charlie McBride, Greg Smith with all the recruiting recon. Tomorrow, Coach Kaczynski will dive in with Mitch Sherman, Mitch's pal over at the Athletic, Max Olson. Really interesting story. Should check out on this loophole.
Oh, I saw this.
That allows colleges to cut players that are transferring. And it was instituted in basketball as a way to not get penalized with the academic progress reports if you got guys leaving early or dropping out, right? Going to play pro ball. Colleges still got smacked with that.
Yeah, so I believe this let them be off the team but still on athletic scholarship so that they could come and finish their career.
Which is, you wanted to finish their degree eventually,
yeah, but
not get the old 0.0 Mr. Blutarski for the team GPA. Because that really hamstrung old school, right? Because Blue died.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The movie Old School.
With Will Ferrell.
Yeah. And the old guy that was in the KY wrestling match with the two college beauties. Well, he good Lord took him before his moment of glory.
Yeah.
And then Blue was still on their roster, so to speak, and it hurt them in their academic challenge.
Yeah, okay.
This is the you're my boy Blue rule.
Yes, but now what the college football coaches are doing is they're using it to cut 10 guys from their roster and say, you can stay on scholarship here, you can continue to get your degree, you're just not on my football team.
And by the way, you have done nothing on the field for us. This is the two-way street. Welcome to cold reality and welcome to real life, where you got to produce to make it.
And
so
we'll
see.
I believe the story said that by the count of Max Olson, USC had already used this on 9 players that were on the former roster that are now still attending USC, still on scholarship, but are not on the football team anymore. So they have 9 of their 10, it seems like, which is not great.
Dan, the reference was Old School, the movie with Will Ferrell. God, what was not Wilson, the blonde guy.
Owen Wilson?
Owen, but his brother, Mitchapalooza.
Is that his actual brother?
No. Well, yeah, the dark-haired guy was in it.
Now you've lost me.
Owen Wilson's the blonde.
Yeah.
His brother was Mitch in Old School.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, the main character that stands out to me is just Frank the Tank.
Right. Once it hits your lips, it's so good. The problem here is Dan tweets in, there wasn't an Animal House ref. Well, yes, I did have a Blutarski reference. I stand corrected. I'm going to shut my mouth and go to bed. Okay. Qualify now. Caller 9. Chance for you to get beefed up. Beef up your backyard with ESPN Lincoln. Caller 9, your chance to qualify for that smoker from Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop. Also Russ's Market. Meet to Russ's Market. Back at you tomorrow. Check the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Thanks.
A Hurrdat Media Production.